The stars had long forgotten Earth. For over 5 centuries, no one in the known galaxy had spoken the name Terra without confusion. It was a dead system, scorched in the ancient wars. Humanity had disappeared into myth, a race of violent apes who never made it past their own self-destruction. That's what they all believed, what they needed to believe. I didn't. I was born on a mining moon orbiting Uthar Prime, a pit planet owned by the Akri Dominion. One of 1,000 backwater rocks chewed up for resources, where humans weren't citizens. They were inventory. I was 11 when the Overseer's guards took my father. Said he stole rations. They beat him in front of us and dragged him off. We never saw him again. That's when I knew what it meant to be human in this galaxy. We were the forgotten, the broken, the sold and silenced. Until yesterday. Until the sky cracked open and the warship fell through. It didn't look like anything the galaxy had ever seen. No sleek, curved lines like the Vile cruisers. No bioluminescent wings like the Zathari ships. No organic bonecraft like the Carhill fleets. This thing was black. Matte black, like a coffin soaked in oil. Rectangular, brutal, angry. It didn't glide, it loomed, and it didn't come to negotiate. The war had been brewing for years, of course. The high seats of the Galactic Council were bloated with power. Empires rising and falling, crushing smaller species under tariffs, military occupations, and mass relocations. There were whispers of rebellion from the scattered colonies. Smugglers spoke of a hidden fleet. But nothing ever came of it. Until yesterday. I was working in the reactor pit, half-starved and soaked in coolant when the alarms started. Red, blaring pulses. Unheard of. Akri installations never raised alarms for slaves. We weren't worth saving. Then the entire complex shook. Not trembled. Shook, like a god punched the planet's crust. I thought it was an earthquake until I climbed the outer shaft and saw the sky. The clouds had turned black, not from smoke, but from shadow. The warship was hovering just outside orbit, silent, waiting. The orbital defenses fired first, as they always do. It didn't matter. Their beams splashed against its hull like water on steel. It didn't even shield, just took it. Then it replied. One shot, a single beam of white light, thin as a whisper, and the station exploded. Not in flames, it just ceased, disintegrated, dust and silence. The warship descended. The Akri were in chaos. Their soldiers ran, their chain of command shredded by the fear in their own ranks. Nobody had ever seen tech like this, not even the ruling thrones of the core worlds. The warship wasn't broadcasting any signals. No translation, no threats, no demands, just one symbol. It appeared over every screen, every holo feed, every comm link. A circle of blue over black. Earth's old flag, reimagined. Humanity's eye, open again, and a name. The Codex identified it in ancient Terran script, ESS Vindicta. Earth Sovereign Ship, Revenge. My heart almost stopped. They had come back. Somehow, somewhere, Earth hadn't died. It had hidden, and it had built. And now it was angry. By the end of that first hour, 6 Akri battlecruisers were gone. The warship hadn't even moved. Its weapons operated like thought. Instant, merciless, silent. Not a single human was harmed. The targeting was surgical. Only slavers, only guards, only towers and ships and stations built on our backs. Then the voice came. It wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It didn't need to. It said one sentence, spoken in old Earth tongue, but translated across every frequency, every channel, in every language. We remember what you did, and now the debt is due. The galaxy shifted that day. Not with a battle, not with a war declaration, but with the arrival of a ghost, an earthborn nightmare forged in silence, returning for the blood price. And I, a nobody, a half-starved human slave on a mining moon, saw it all unfold. This was just the beginning. Silence ruled the next hour, but it was a dangerous kind of silence, the kind that hung over a battlefield before the blood started to soak the dirt. The ESS Vindicta remained still in orbit, a black specter cutting the sky in half. No more shots came from it, no more words. It didn't need to speak again. The message had already been delivered. The galaxy's rulers, those smug cowards who had carved their empires into our bones, had been put on notice. And from the dirt, we started to rise. I didn't know what I was doing when I climbed the tower. Maybe I wanted to get closer. Maybe I was trying to see the ship one last time before the Dominion crushed it, erased it like they always did with threats. That's what I expected. But as I stood at the top of the coolant stack, half my body burned from years of radiation, ribs poking out under my rag shirt, something inside me cracked open. I wasn't scared. I was alive. More alive than I had ever been. Every part of me had learned how to keep my head down, how to keep breathing, how to survive. But this was different. That ship, whatever it was, didn't ask permission, didn't plead for mercy, didn't come begging for recognition from the Council like so many other species had. No, it came with purpose, and we were its purpose. Below me, the facility stirred like an anthill kicked in half. Akri guards barked orders, dragging weapons from storage. Enforcer mechs booted up. Defense drones zipped overhead, too late to have any effect. Panic had taken the command structure. Nobody was listening to anyone. That's when the second signal came. It didn't come from the ship this time. It came from the planet, our planet. My chest clenched as my slate buzzed, my personal comm, something I'd kept hidden for years. Even though it barely functioned. It was old Terran tech, junk really, a relic from before my father disappeared. I kept it more out of shame than hope. It lit up. Signal acquired. This is the Vindicta resistance. Stand by for extraction. All humans remain stationary. Do not engage. Vindicta sees you. My hands shook. We weren't forgotten. We weren't alone. Then the sky cracked a second time. This time it wasn't one warship. It was 5. No, 6. 10. They didn't arrive through the atmosphere. They didn't jump from hyperspace. They simply appeared. One moment the sky was empty. The next it was filled with black ships shaped like spears, like coffin lances aimed straight at the stars. Each one different, each one silent. No markings, no lights, just presence. The Akri screamed. Their air traffic went insane. Pilots launched without orders. A cruiser accidentally collided with one of its own dropships and exploded over the mining district. Panic wasn't a strategy, but it was all they had. I laughed. It came out broken, hollow. But it was laughter. After a lifetime of waiting for justice, I was finally watching the throne burn. Across the settlement, things started to happen. Lights turned off, doors locked down, all Dominion systems froze. The AI core screamed as it failed to reconnect to its control relay. The Vindicta ships weren't firing anymore. They were hacking, shutting everything down from orbit. And then, from the central tower, a light blinked blue. One of the Vindicta lances broke formation. It dropped fast, like a dagger falling from the sky. The air around it sizzled, but there was no explosion. Just impact. A wave of kinetic force hit the outer walls and shattered the main gate. Dust flew. Guards stumbled. Out of the dust came them. The boarding team. 6 figures in black. Full armor. No helmets. Human faces. Cold, scarred, focused. No mercy in their eyes. Each one moved like they'd trained in gravity 10 times heavier than this. Every motion was precise, efficient. Not soldiers, executioners. They didn't shout, didn't raise flags. They walked through gunfire like it was rain. Akri rounds sparked off their armor. One dropped to a knee, leveled a rail launcher, and ripped through 3 guards with a single shot. No ceremony, just judgment. And I realized something that should have terrified me, but didn't. They weren't here to liberate us. They were here to avenge us. One of them stopped. A woman, tall, pale, hair tied tight. Her eyes locked with mine as I crouched on the stack. She nodded once, then threw me a data pad. ID, confirmed name, Silas Ray status, Terran-born descendant clearance level 2 condition, malnourished extraction, authorized, debrief, pending my name. My real name. Nobody here knew it. The Akri didn't care. We weren't given names, just numbers. But somehow they knew. She turned, raised her comm, and spoke one word. Start. And hell was unleashed. From the edges of the compound, every screen flared blue. The doors exploded inward, not outward. They weren't trying to keep us in, they were letting us out. And we came. From the tunnels, the barracks, the mines, we poured out like a wave, thin, broken, limping, but burning inside. Decades of silence, of fear, of pain, boiled over in an instant. I wasn't the only one with fire in his gut. The first Akri guard who tried to stop us was torn apart before he could lift his rifle. Others ran. Some begged. One even tried to surrender. We didn't accept it. The Vindicta troopers didn't stop us. They let it happen. One even tossed a human boy a shock baton and nodded as he cracked an overseer's skull. They weren't just freeing us. They were giving us our dignity back. Through vengeance. We didn't just win that day. We reclaimed something. As I stumbled through the smoke and chaos, datapad clutched in my shaking hand, I saw more Vindicta dropships land. They didn't look like war machines. They looked like tombs, each one marked with names, not ship IDs, human names. Ryder, Lynx, Dawson, Halberd, Graham. Names of families lost, names of Terran bloodlines scattered across a galaxy that tried to erase them. Names that survived. One trooper approached me. He looked maybe 30, face worn, beard rough. His armor was scuffed but clean. He reached out, and I flinched. He didn't grab me. He saluted. Silas Ray, son of Eric, born Uthar Moon 7. You are no longer a slave. You are Terran. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. He offered me a ration bar, the kind I'd only ever seen in black market drops. Real food, dense, heavy, packed with flavor. I stared at it like it was gold. You're coming with us, he said. The galaxy thinks we're extinct. They're wrong. We're back, and we're not asking for a seat at the table. He looked up at the sky, where the warships hung like executioners over a guilty throne. We're flipping the whole table. I followed him. Not because I had nowhere else to go, but because I finally knew where I belonged. As the Vindicta rose from the surface, with us, the survivors, the slaves, the forgotten, on board, I looked down at the burning compound. There was no pity in me, no guilt, just a thought. Let the galaxy tremble. Earth is awake. The interior of the Vindicta was nothing like I expected. There were no polished corridors, no soft glows or sleek sci-fi elegance like the Dominion ships. This place felt like a bunker in space. Hard edges, exposed plating, thick bulkheads layered with defensive steel and scorched markings. Every surface was functional. Every hallway felt like it had survived a war, probably more than one. It smelled of oil, sweat, and metal. Not luxury, not comfort. Purpose. That's what separated this warship from anything the galaxy had seen. This wasn't a showpiece like the core worlds paraded during their peace summits. This was built to win, built to kill, built for us. I sat strapped to a steel bench beside 5 other Terrans just like me. Thin, ragged, eyes hollow but flickering with something old, something sacred, hope mixed with rage. The man across from me kept staring at the rifle slung on the wall behind the trooper. Not because he wanted to take it, because he couldn't believe it was there. He'd been born in the mines, like me. He'd never held a weapon in his life. "Name?" one of the troopers asked. "Silas Ray," I said. The trooper tapped on a pad. "Son of Eric Ray, Uthar Moon Complex. DNA match confirmed. Level 2 Terran clearance approved." I swallowed. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer, just handed me a black tag, hexagonal in shape, etched with Earth's new emblem, an eye wrapped in barbed orbit lines. The tag was heavy, like it carried more than just metal. "You wear that, people will know who you are," he said. "They'll either salute you or they'll try to kill you." "Why would they kill me?" "Because you're human," he said, like it was the most obvious truth in the galaxy. "And humans aren't supposed to fight back." He moved on, left me with the tag. I clutched it like it was a piece of my father's ghost. I remembered the day they took him. He didn't scream, he didn't fight. He just stared at the guard, silent, proud, as if daring him to kill him right there. Now I understood why. He wasn't afraid. He was waiting. The Vindicta didn't dock at a station. It didn't land. It descended into an asteroid belt in Sector VUF-9, where a massive mining station floated between shattered rocks and forgotten ore shells. Except this wasn't a mine anymore. This was a foundry, one of Earth's hidden black sites, a place that didn't show up on any star map, a place not even the Dominion knew existed. No lights, no comm beacons, no transit routes. It was buried in the asteroid field, shielded by ancient wreckage and radiation storms. The perfect hiding spot. But what it held was even more dangerous. As the Vindicta passed through the outer debris field, massive hangars opened like gaping mouths. Inside them were rows of Earth warships, some even larger than the Vindicta, all matte black, all silent, some still under construction, some armed and ready. Each one bore a name: Honorless, Retribution, Gravedigger, Echo of Earth, Severance. The message was clear. We weren't building for diplomacy. We were building for extinction. We were taken off the Vindicta in silence. No cheers, no welcomes. Just quick scans, blood tests, and debriefs. There was a military precision to it all. Everyone here had a job, even the civilians. A woman approached me in the med bay, late 40s, sharp eyes, white coat stained with oil and soot. She had the look of someone who hadn't slept in days and didn't give a damn. "You're Silas." "Yes." She scanned her pad. "Your DNA carries a rare Earth-line marker, Northern Hemisphere variant, strong immune backbone. That'll be useful." "For what?" She looked up. "For building a future. The galaxy's going to come for us, Silas. Once they figure out what we're doing, we'll be fighting on all sides. And when that happens, we need humans who can fight and survive." I stayed silent. She softened slightly. "You're not a soldier yet, but you will be." She handed me a black uniform, not armor, just fabric. Simple. Unadorned. On the sleeve was a stitched patch, an inverted triangle with 3 red slashes down the middle. "What does it mean?" "Third wave," she said. "You're part of the third wave of extractions. First wave was 15 years ago, second was 7. You're number 638. I blinked. There were hundreds of us. "Thousands," she said, reading my face, "and we're just getting started." That night, if you could call it night in space, I sat in the barracks, staring at the food in front of me. Real food. Protein. Carbs. Even fruit. I hadn't tasted fruit since I was a child. The man next to me, Marcus, a quiet type from a colony I'd never heard of, cried as he chewed a piece of bread. Not because it was good, but because it reminded him what life was supposed to be. Across the room, a screen flared to life. Everyone stopped. Everyone watched. A briefing came on. No fancy graphics, just a grainy image of the galaxy overlaid with red zones, blinking star systems, and Dominion flags. A voice came over the speakers. Calm, male, older. "This is Commander Halvin, acting coordinator of Operation Ember. If you're seeing this, you've been recovered from enemy territory. You've lived through hell. You've earned your place here." He paused. "But the fight is just beginning." A map zoomed in on the Akri Dominion territories. "In the next 90 cycles, we're launching coordinated strikes on 12 high-value Dominion targets, slave trade hubs, weapons stockyards, intelligence outposts. No mercy, no survivors." The screen flickered again. Another map. "This is not about justice. It's about fear. The Dominion thinks humanity is dead. They've used our bones to build their thrones. That ends now. We're not coming to negotiate." Another pause. "We're coming to bury them." The next morning we trained. Brutal, unrelenting drills. Gravity modifiers cranked to 3G. Combat drills with shock blades, rail pistols, gauntlet tech. No time to adjust. No sympathy. If you fell, they pulled you up. If you gave up, they threw you out. One trainer, a man with one eye and metal arms, grabbed me by the collar on day 3. "You were born under a boot, Ray, I get it. But now you've got a knife in your hand. So stop thinking like a slave and start acting like a predator." I gritted my teeth and got back up. They weren't here to make us comfortable. They were here to reshape us. 2 weeks in, we got our first mission. Not battle, not sabotage. Witnessing. They loaded 20 of us onto a dropship, no weapons, just uniforms, and dropped us on a Dominion moon known for public executions. A show of force, they called it. The Akri didn't know who we were. We walked into the square, eyes forward, no fear. When the guards demanded our IDs, we said nothing. When they tried to detain us, the sky turned black. The Vindicta arrived, in full view of every citizen. It opened fire, not on the people, but on the palaces. Glass, metal, stone, gone in seconds. Then the message played. Same voice, same sentence. "We remember what you did, and now the debt is due." We left that moon without firing a single shot. The Akri broadcasted a galaxy-wide alert. Earth was back, and we weren't hiding anymore. They called it Operation Black Wake. Not because it was clean, not because it was surgical, because it was meant to leave a trail of ruin so deep, so undeniable, that every system touched by the Akri Dominion would feel it like a sickness in their bones. The target, Halcor Station, a slave processing hub orbiting the edge of Dominion-controlled space, built from the stripped remains of 4 moons, suspended in zero-grav around a hollowed-out mining ring. Halcor wasn't just a station. It was a machine, one designed to funnel, break, and sell humans by the thousands. Every day, hundreds were processed. Every day, another bloodline was erased. The Vindicta didn't ask for permission to strike it. It just gave the order. 3 ships were deployed for the operation: Vindicta, Severance, and a new destroyer fresh off the foundry lines, Feral Light. I was assigned to the Severance, Infantry Unit, Squad 6. No rank yet. Just a patch on my arm and a rifle in my hand that felt like it weighed more than the life I'd lived up to now. Our commander was a man named Thorn. No first name, just Thorn. He didn't smile, didn't shout, just moved like someone who'd killed for a living and learned how to breathe through guilt. He stood in front of us in the briefing chamber. The lights dimmed. Holograms of Halcor spun in red light above the table. Docks, towers, gravity rings, slave pods. Estimated defenses: 4,000 troops, 60 automated cannons, 3 Dominion command ships stationed nearby. "We don't take prisoners," Thorn said, tapping his finger on the image. "They don't take ours. You don't stop moving. You don't talk unless it's a kill call. You see a collar, you break it. You see a chain, you burn it. You see one of our people, you bring them home." No one questioned him. No one needed to. We had waited our whole lives for this. The drop was fast. Too fast. The Severance's launch tubes were silent until ignition. No countdown. No warning. Just the locking sound of your pod slamming shut. And then darkness. We fell through space in single-man pods, each a metal spear carrying a fury most of us had never felt before. My stomach twisted. My palms dripped sweat inside my gloves. The voice in my head, the old voice, the one that had kept me alive in the mines, whispered that this was a mistake, that we weren't ready, that this was suicide. Then I remembered the branding iron they used on my uncle, the one that seared numbers into his neck until he forgot how to speak. That voice inside me, I crushed it. The moment my pod hit the outer ring of Halcor, I moved. Armor locked, visor down, breathing shallow. The interior of the station was chaos. Alarm klaxons screamed. Dominion guards ran like rats through metal corridors, shouting into comms that no longer connected to anything. Our ships had jammed all signals. Squad 6 regrouped fast. Thorn led from the front. His rifle didn't fire bursts. It roared. A Dominion officer came around the corner, barking orders into a useless data pad. Thorn didn't hesitate. One round, head gone. Clean. We pushed into the first containment wing. The doors were coded, encrypted. Didn't matter. Thorn slapped a black charge on the panel, stepped back, and let it blow. The walls trembled. Smoke billowed. Inside were dozens of cells. Each one had two things: a slave and a number. I'll never forget the way they looked at us. Not with hope, not at first, with fear. We didn't look like saviors. We looked like another faction come to claim them. Then I stepped forward and said the words we'd been trained to use. Earth sees you. They froze. A woman in the first cell, older, ragged, eyes sunken but still sharp, stood slowly. Say it again, she whispered. Earth sees you, I said. She dropped to her knees, hands over her face. Not crying. Just breathing. Like she'd been holding her breath for 20 years. We cleared the wing in 7 minutes. No Dominion troops survived. No alarms worked. Every prisoner was tagged, scanned, and routed to the evac corridor. The Severance's med teams were already descending. Not a single human was left behind. But the deeper we pushed into the station, the harder it got. They had war beasts in the lower decks, massive cybernetic brutes, once human bodies twisted into weapons, made to crush rebellion. The first one came through the wall without warning. It took 2 of our squad with it. A woman named Kale, a kid named Bryn, gone before they could scream. We didn't stop. We couldn't stop. The warbeast died under concentrated fire. 5 railguns, 1 plasma charge, and a hammer unit that crushed what was left of its skull. Its last sound was a human moan. They hadn't erased what it used to be. They'd just buried it deep inside and made it suffer. We reached the central tower at hour 2. It was a fortress, automated defenses, shield grids, Dominion elites guarding the command spire. Thorn didn't give us time to hesitate. He ordered a full breach. My hands shook as I stacked on the door. This was it. The heart of it, the place where they kept the manifest, the logs, the proof of every name that had passed through Halcor's gates. If we took it, the galaxy would know. There'd be no more denials, no more hiding. The door blew. We charged. Gunfire lit the room. Grenades, screams. One of theirs grabbed my arm, tried to pull me down. I spun, slammed the stock of my rifle into his jaw. He crumpled. I moved on. No time to feel, no time to think. Just move. The control room was glass and steel, filled with Dominion officers in panic. They tried to wipe the data. Too late. Thorn shot through the server bank, not to destroy it, but to hit the failsafe. EarthTech embedded in the rounds, the entire system locked up, data frozen, copied, uploaded. Seconds later, the message went out. Every terminal, every screen, every ship in nearby space received the broadcast. A list. Hundreds of thousands of names. Dates, transactions, sale records, execution orders, all real. The Dominion could no longer pretend. And the galaxy watched in horror. We didn't stay to gloat. Earth doesn't do victory speeches. We extracted with our wounded, our dead, and over 900 liberated humans. Halcor burned behind us. The Vindicta dropped a final payload as we cleared orbit, a compression bomb that folded the station in on itself. Not just a strike, a statement. From the ashes, a new message was transmitted. Same voice. Cold. Clear. Where you break us, we will rise. Where you sell us, we will return. For every Terran you've chained, we will chain 1,000 of you. The age of silence is over. We returned to the foundry with the bodies of our fallen. No speeches. No applause, just names etched into steel. Kale, Bryn, Amos, Garrick. They weren't heroes. They were ours. That night, I sat on the outer deck of the Severance and looked at the stars. They didn't look the same anymore. They weren't just lights in the void. They were targets. The galaxy had fed on us for centuries. Now it would choke on our return. And the thrones? They hadn't even begun to understand the storm coming for them. By the third solar cycle after Halcor Station fell, the galaxy had officially begun to unravel. It didn't happen in one big announcement. There was no grand declaration. It started with whispers, transmissions cut mid-sentence, emergency lockdowns on fringe colonies, strange black warships sighted near Dominion borders. The interstellar news networks spun it hard, calling it terrorist interference or false flag incursions. But the galaxy wasn't stupid. We hadn't just struck Halcor, we'd dismantled it, and the proof, the manifests, the names, the faces of the enslaved, had gone viral in hours. The upper houses of the council tried to censor it, but Earth's tech wasn't bound by their filters. We'd grown too far, too deep, too angry to be silenced again. The systems that once cheered the Dominion's order now trembled behind closed borders. And deep in the core worlds, the thrones started to panic. The core was never meant to be touched. 12 elite civilizations, untouchable by design. Their fleets made up 80% of the galaxy's military power. Their currencies ran the trade networks. Their laws shaped the rest of the systems. And all of it sat behind a curtain of diplomatic immunity, wealth, and brute technological superiority. Earth had once begged for access. Now we were rewriting the rules. After Halcor, meetings began behind closed doors. The Cathari Senate was the first to speak publicly. Their leader, an insectoid creature with 6 eyes and a voice like scraping steel, issued a warning across the galactic net. The rumors of a human resurgence are exaggerated, isolated terror, a resurgence of primitive anger. They will be crushed. The next day, the Cathari shipyard in orbit around Vrantal exploded without warning. Over 20,000 personnel vaporized in under 3 seconds. No claim, no message, no warhead detected. Just a single symbol left behind on their communication grid. The Eye of Earth. Inside the Vindicta's war room, the map of the galaxy was shifting. Lines moved, red zones flickered, blockades collapsed. But Commander Halvin's face remained unreadable as ever. His eyes traced each system like a chessboard, and we were the pieces. "You think they're scared now?" I asked him, one evening after briefings. He didn't turn, just kept staring at the glowing hologram. "They're terrified," he said, "but scared animals don't run, they bite." He tapped one of the flashing systems. "Sector Liran 8. The Dominion's about to counterstrike." "How do you know?" "Because I would." He was right. Less than 72 hours later, the retaliation began. It wasn't on a base. It wasn't even on a known human asset. It was on a refugee convoy, 5 ships that had just escaped from the slaver pits on Kordash, headed for Earth-controlled space. Unarmed, medical class, registered neutral. The Dominion intercepted them at the edge of the Varn Belt. Didn't even bother boarding. They erased them from existence. All 5 ships. No warnings, no comms, no hesitation. Over 1,300 civilians, mostly women and children, gone in seconds. And then, just to rub salt in what they thought was a wound, they sent us the feed. They wanted to provoke us, to goad us into something reckless. They didn't realize what they'd done. They hadn't wounded us. They'd unleashed us. Commander Halvan called for an emergency assembly. Every major warship in Earth's Black Fleet was represented. Vindicta, Severance, Feral Light, Gravedigger, dozens of others. Each ship captain stood silent around the war room table as Halvan played the feed. We watched it, all of it. He made sure we did. And when it ended, there was no weeping. There was only stillness. Then Halvan spoke. "We have never fired on a core world. That changes now." Gasps, even among the hardened captains. One spoke up, a broad, scarred woman with a limp from a wound she never fixed. "They'll retaliate, with everything. We hit a core, we start a war we can't stop." Halvan nodded. "Then we don't stop." The target was chosen in silence, Evanta Prime, Jewel of the Thorn Circle. Not because it was strategic, because it was sacred to them. A city world, home to the elite of the Dominion, the bureaucrats and financiers who had feasted off humanity's bones. The place where trade routes were set, slave quotas calculated, and resource theft signed off in opulent towers by creatures who never left the comfort of their atmospheric gardens. We would show them what comfort costs. The operation had no name. It didn't need one. We didn't invade. We didn't broadcast. We didn't fire first. The Vindicta simply appeared in low orbit. Evanta's defense systems activated instantly. Tens of thousands of drone fighters, laser arrays, orbital shields powered by planetary cores. Enough to destroy a standard fleet in under 2 minutes. We didn't bring a standard fleet. We brought hell. The Vindicta alone disabled the defense net with a waveform disruptor. We'd spent years studying their tech, their signal coding. Now we used it against them. Their own weapons shut down before they even finished warming up. The sky turned black with Vindicta dropships. We didn't land in the military zones. We landed in the gardens, the towers, the private estates of the Dominion elite. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a reckoning. I led my squad into the heart of their cultural district. We passed statues built with stolen wealth, museums curated from plundered civilizations, tapestries woven from the silk of extinct species, and at the center of it all, a gallery of human bones, real, labeled, displayed as primitive evolutionary relics. I stared at a jawbone marked Specimen 32, Earth Origin, and felt something in me break. We didn't burn the building. We sent the feed to every planet in the system. Then we marked the building with Earth's eye and let it stand. Not as a relic, as a warning. In 14 hours, Evanta Prime was left in chaos. No leaders, no communication. Their economy collapsed overnight. The core world scrambled to offer assistance, but we jammed every relay. And just before we left orbit, Halvan sent a message. Short. Cold. You do not get to choose who remembers history anymore. We are not shadows. We are not slaves. We are not extinct. We are Earth, and we have not forgotten. Back at the Foundry, there were no celebrations. There was only preparation. The war was no longer on the edge of the galaxy. It was here. And for the first time in centuries, the Thrones realized that Earth's greatest strength wasn't just its anger, it was its patience. We had waited in silence. We had rebuilt in darkness. And now? We were bringing that silence to them, one world at a time. They hit us on the 7th day, not with firepower, not with fleets, with information. The galactic news grid, the same one they used for centuries to manipulate trade, smear uprisings, and sell human suffering as order, broadcasted a new campaign across all known systems. It showed us the Vindicta, the Severance, our strikes on Halcor, the orbital disruption over Ivanta Prime. But they didn't show the slave cages, or the bone galleries, or the convoys they burned. No, they showed us pulling triggers and labeled it terrorism. Human insurgents have declared total war on galactic peace, the feed claimed. Earth's forgotten spawn have returned as butchers, not diplomats. They even faked a message, spliced with our own voice logs. We will burn your worlds until nothing breathes. Thorn watched the broadcast beside me. His jaw clenched, the scar near his temple twitching. They want the neutrals scared, he muttered. They know they can't stop us in battle, so now they'll try to erase our cause. Commander Halvan paced behind him. His hands were locked behind his back. That was never a good sign. They're not just afraid of us anymore, Halvan said. They're afraid of what kept us hidden for so long. That was the first time he said it out loud. And I realized something. They'd never told us everything. Later that day, I was summoned to the Black Chamber deep in the Severance. I'd never been there. No regular infantry had. The halls down here were darker, sealed by gene locks and neural scans. Thorn escorted me personally. You're not infantry anymore, he said without looking back. Command cleared you for access. Full status. You earned it. I didn't feel like I had. I still carried Bryn's patch in my boot, still remembered how she screamed when that war beast tore her out of the line. But Thorn opened the last vault door, and what I saw erased every thought in my head. The chamber wasn't a room. It was a vault. And inside it floated something I didn't have a name for, a core. Spherical, pulsing with dim blue light. It was suspended in zero-G, held by kinetic fields, and layered in ancient tech. I didn't recognize any of it. Then Halvan spoke. This is the reason we disappeared, he said quietly. And the reason we're alive. I stepped closer. It's not just a reactor, he continued. It's a neural archive, a ghost system, a remnant of old Earth's last project before the collapse. He tapped a panel. Data floated into the air. Project. Thanatos Protocol, classified Earth-level Omega creation. Date. 2 days before solstice strike, I looked at him. You mean, before we lost Earth? He nodded. The last thing our people built was not a weapon, it was a memory. When Earth burned, most believed it was the end. They called it the solstice strike. Still debated who fired it. The Karhil said it was an internal war. The Dominion claimed we imploded, but Halvan showed me the truth. We faked our extinction, using Thanatos. The system was designed to simulate complete planetary annihilation, from orbit to surface to deep core emissions. Every sensor in the galaxy saw Earth die. But under the ashes, we hid. Thanatos wasn't just a memory archive. It was a shadow engine, able to project false signals, fake communication signatures, forge energy outputs. We used it to vanish. Every colony that survived went dark. Every ship that escaped was masked. Every human beacon erased. For 200 years, the galaxy believed Earth was dead. But in truth, we were watching and building. And now, Thanatos was online again. The same day, Dominion High Command issued a bounty on every human with a verified blood marker. They called us galactic contaminants. Offered currency, land, and citizenship in the core for anyone who turned us in, even if we were born after the collapse, even if we were children. It worked. In the neutral worlds, civilians started panicking. Old allies began distancing themselves. Pirate lords who once ran slave routes now sold us out to curry favor with the thrones. But something else happened too. Something the Dominion didn't predict. We weren't the only ones who remembered. Across the stars, in abandoned factories, rotting colonies, prison moons, and empty churches, the forgotten began to rise. Humans who hadn't been extracted yet. Terran bloodlines long buried under alien names. They came out of hiding. They started fighting back. With scraps, with stolen rifles, with bare hands. And everywhere they struck, they left a symbol. Not a flag, not a creed. Just the eye of Earth, scratched into walls, painted in blood, burned into stone. The message was simple. We are not extinct. Meanwhile, our engineers unlocked the final vaults inside Thanatos. And what they found? Changed everything. It wasn't just an archive. It was a blueprint, a warship schematic, unlike anything in our current fleet. Twice the size of the Vindicta. Powered not by standard plasma cores, but something called a singularity lance, a weapon built to pierce the heart of a star. Not destroy it. Detonate it. Thorne stared at the schematics for a long time. This is why they tried to erase us, he said. They knew what we were capable of. This ship, if we build this, we won't need diplomacy, I finished. No, Halvin said, turning away from the display. We'll need a plan to make sure we survive using it. They named the project Oathbreaker. The name came from the last line in the Earth Exodus Charter, a line the core worlds had long erased from the record. We swear never to return until we can hold the stars accountable. Now we would. The ship would take months to build, even in the Foundry's accelerated bays. But once launched, it would be more than just a warship. It would be Earth's final argument. In the meantime, the Thrones weren't sitting idle. They launched counter-operations, small surgical teams designed to sneak into our black sites and assassinate key figures. One of them got close to Thorne. Real close. He killed the assassin with his bare hands, choked him out, broke every bone in his arm, and threw him into the core reactor. But the message had been sent. We were no longer hunters in the dark, we were targets. So we adapted. We went deeper into hiding. Thanatos was expanded, its reach grew. Earth's eye stretched into systems we hadn't touched yet. We began recruiting non-human allies, those who had suffered under the thrones just like us. Forgotten species, abandoned colonies, AI fragments from dead wars. One by one, they joined us. Not because they loved us, because they hated the same monsters we did. We weren't building a rebellion anymore. We were building an extinction event. By the end of the cycle, Earth's name was on every screen in the galaxy. Some said we were demons, some called us saints. Most just whispered the same word, revenant. A ghost returned to settle a score, and deep in the command room of the Vindicta, with the Thanatos core humming behind him, Halvin finally smiled. This is what they feared, he said. Not our guns, not our ships. He looked at the map, at the stars shifting, at the thrones teetering. They feared our memory. The first throne to fall wasn't the loudest. It wasn't the strongest either. It was the one no one thought would fall at all. The Viral Matriarchy, Core World Number 7. Known for peacekeeping fleets, trade diplomacy, and cultural influence that spanned 200 star systems. On the surface, they'd always looked clean. Uninvolved in the worst Dominion atrocities. Safe behind their golden banners and soft speeches. But we'd uncovered the files. Halker's central archive hadn't just held sales data. It held receipts, hundreds of them. The matriarchy had quietly purchased over 23,000 Terran slaves over the past 40 years, used them as household labor, planetary terraformers, private militia for elite families. They even bred them for loyalty implants, surgical mind compliance, smiled for the cameras, paid for chains behind closed doors. Halvan didn't call for a strike team this time. He didn't send the Vindicta. He sent a broadcast to every matriarchy-aligned system. A voice, calm and deliberate. The Varel speak peace with one hand and bury children with the other. Earth does not negotiate with liars. Then came the evidence. Names, contracts, images, implants, death reports. One video showed a young Terran girl, barely 10, digging trenches on a matriarchy pleasure moon, while two noble women sipped wine and laughed in the background. The message ended with one line, stamped with Earth's eye. Return them, or we will return them to you in pieces. The matriarchy denied everything. Screamed fabrication, claimed Dominion interference, swore the evidence was faked, but the damage was done. Their own outer colonies revolted within hours. 10 governors declared independence. Varel military transports were shot down by their own people. One fleet commander, a woman named Rael Vex, turned her entire battle group around mid-flight and broadcast a single sentence to every system. Earth is right. While the Varel crumbled from within, Earth began its first multi-front strike. This time there was no illusion of subtlety. We hit 3 systems at once. Kranos 4, a military shipyard pumping out Dominion gunships used in slave patrols. Veltrak Hollow, a neutral trade port serving as a silent funnel for black market slave movement. Core Prime, a Dominion fortress planet built on the bones of Earth's oldest colony. It wasn't just about strategy, it was about message. Nowhere was safe. I led the Veltrak operation, not because I was the most experienced, but because Veltrak had once been my father's last known stop. According to Thanatos archives, he'd been processed through the Hollow 19 years ago, sold off from there to unknown buyers. I never found out where he went after, but I would burn the place anyway. We dropped fast, no warning, no chatter, no threats. We moved through the port like knives. Veltrak was technically neutral, meaning the Corps pretended it wasn't part of their system while still using it for slave logistics. That made it worse than the Dominion. The guards weren't soldiers, they were freelancers, hired security, bounty hunters, ex-pirates. They thought we'd show mercy. We didn't. The first strike team took the control tower. Cut power to every dock. The second team moved through the cargo sectors, found over 400 Terrans in shipping crates. Packed like animals, barely breathing. One of them was pregnant. Her arms were broken. Her name was Aira. She still saluted me when we opened the crate. Didn't ask for help. Asked for a rifle. We gave her one. By the 3rd hour, Veltrak Hollow was under our control. We broadcasted the footage. The crates. The buyers. One transmission in particular hit hard. A Zoltari merchant we caught trying to smuggle 5 kids off the station in cryopods. We forced him to confess live. He cried. Blamed cultural misunderstanding. Said they weren't slaves, just servants awaiting integration. Then Halvan's voice cut in. Tell them the price. The merchant stuttered. 10 credits each. Halvan didn't reply. He just nodded. And the Zoltari's skull exploded from the charge we'd wired to the back of his neck. Live. Unedited. Let the galaxy see what 10 credits bought. Meanwhile, Kranos 4's shipyard was reduced to orbiting slag. We hadn't even landed troops. The Gravedigger deployed a planetary disruptor, a weapon designed not to explode, but to implode. The entire yard collapsed into itself, crushing 90 Dominion ships still in dry dock. And on Core Prime, the real miracle happened. We thought it'd be a meat grinder. Instead, half the Dominion's own conscripted infantry surrendered, laid down arms and begged for extraction. They were tired of killing us, tired of obeying liars, tired of pretending we didn't bleed the same, but it wasn't all victory. In the middle of Core Prime's sweep, we were hit, not by the Dominion, by the Hadron Accord. a neutral faction. Former allies of Earth, even helped our people escape during the collapse. We'd trusted them, and they sold us out. Their fleets entered core prime airspace mid-operation and opened fire on us. The Severance took 3 direct hits, lost a whole wing. We were blindsided, not because they were stronger, but because we believed they wouldn't betray us. The Vindicta reacted fast. Orbital cannon lit up the sky. The Hadron ships tried to run, but they weren't built for real war. We left one alive, forced their admiral to speak. He appeared on our feed, blood running from a wound on his temple, mouth trembling. They offered us protection, he said. Said if we gave up Earth's movements, they'd leave us alone. Who? Halvan asked coldly. The admiral hesitated. The Viral remnants, backed by the Dominion. They're uniting. Building a coalition. That was the moment we realized. The thrones were starting to merge. Our strikes had fractured them, but also forced them together. Now they weren't fighting for domination. They were fighting for survival. We had no illusions after that. No more allies, no more friends. Just the mission. Just the Oathbreaker. Construction accelerated. Oathbreaker's frame now floated in the heart of the foundry. Black, angular, massive, bigger than any known warship, its spinal cannon still under assembly, its singularity lance still being calibrated, but it pulsed with potential. The engineers worked non-stop. Sleep came in rations. Fuel was blood. We poured everything into it, because we knew. Once Oathbreaker launched, there was no turning back. I watched it grow every day, remembered my father's hands, calloused and cracked from hauling rock and soldering broken gear in the mining camps. He would have been proud. He wouldn't have needed to see it fire, just to know it existed, that we hadn't faded, that Earth had learned to build something worse than fear. Hope with teeth. We were still licking the wounds from Core Prime when Thanatos went dark. Not the core, the network. 1 second, the memory engine was feeding every black site, every warship, and every Terran resistance cell with location masking, threat mapping, and signal forging. The next, silence. The kind of silence that sets your skin crawling, that leaves you cold in the lungs. That doesn't feel like a glitch, feels like a warning. I was in the Vindicta's comms chamber when the first report came in. Blacksite Trenhelm 3 had gone offline. Then Hollowstar, then Forge Point Drift. All gone. No explosions, no distress calls, just cut off. Like someone had reached into the darkness and snuffed out the lights one by one. Commander Halvan stood frozen, staring at the fading grid map like he could will it back online. Are we being jammed? Thorne asked. No, Halvan said quietly. We're being deleted. 30 minutes later, we got the answer. The Dominion didn't attack a world. They attacked the past. They'd found the Thanatos mirror, a backup of our memory core, one we'd buried deep inside a derelict Terran ark known as the Echo. It wasn't just backup data. It held footage, DNA archives, culture, languages, our pre-collapse history, all of it. The soul of what Earth was before the fire. We'd hidden it in the drift belt, surrounded by dead stars and radiation storms that would rip most ships apart. We thought it was safe, but the thrones had found a way. The Viral remnants, the Dominion, and a few defectors from the Cathari Senate had formed an elite team. Not a fleet, not a battalion, archivists, hackers, memory assassins, ex-intelligence warlocks. They called them the Cleaners. Their purpose, not to fight us, but to erase us. We got the feed just as they finished, a shaky clip from a fleeing patrol drone. The Echo split open, drifting apart in fire and silence. No survivors, no salvage. Everything inside, gone. They'd hit us where it hurt most. Not in our armor, not in our blood, but in our identity. Halvan said nothing for almost a full hour. He didn't shout, didn't move. Just sat in the war room while reports poured in about echo core disruptions, data instability, memory strand desyncs. Thanatos still worked, but now it flickered, incomplete, like a man who remembered the war but not his name. I sat across from him, fists clenched. "They didn't kill us," I said. "No," Halvin replied. "They did worse. They tried to make it like we never existed." That night, I walked alone through the lower decks of the Vindicta. There were no celebrations anymore, no laughing over ration packs. The crew moved like ghosts, silent, hard-eyed. People who'd seen too much, lost too much, and now felt the sting of something worse than death. Erasure. And I started thinking, what if they succeeded? What if this is how we go? Not in fire, not in blood, but in forgetting. What if Earth fades not because they kill us, but because no one remembers why we fought? But then I passed a girl in the corridor. Young. Maybe 12. Wrapped in an oversized Earth Fleet jacket. She was scribbling something on the wall with a piece of sharpened carbon pipe. I stopped, stepped closer. She'd drawn a planet, blue and green, a rough sketch, crude, clumsy, but I knew it instantly. "Earth," I whispered. She looked at me. "I never saw it," she said. "But my mother told me about the trees." Her voice was soft, like she was remembering something she never touched. "They can't erase that," she said, then turned and walked away. The next day, Halvin ordered Operation Gravewake. We weren't going to retaliate with ships. We weren't going to broadcast a message. We were going to steal our memory back. The mission was insane. The echo was gone, yes, but according to Thanatos, 3 backup shards had been splintered before the cleaners attacked. Not data cores, not hard drives, but people. Before we built Thanatos, Earth's scientists had discovered something dangerous: genetic memory coding. Memories, compressed, embedded, encrypted, within living Terran DNA. Only the oldest Earthblood families carried it, and 3 of them had survived the collapse. We didn't know where they were. Only that one had been sold into the deepest level of Dominion territory. And if we didn't find them soon, the cleaners would. We started with the Kelstar rings, a cluster of asteroid prisons orbiting a red giant sun. No navigation maps, no docking codes, no records. But Thanatos whispered one name. Prisoner. V1031. Age unknown. Status dormant. DNA marker Y-DNA prime 33. We didn't know what it meant, only that it was one of ours. I led the infiltration team. 5 of us. Disguised as bounty collectors delivering a rebel sympathizer to the prison. Valen, our comms tech, faked the Dominion badge perfectly. We got past the checkpoint. We got inside. And what we found? It wasn't a prison. It was a graveyard. Thousands of humans, chained to walls, plugged into memory extractors, silent, eyes open, but empty. The Dominion wasn't jailing us. They were harvesting us. We found V1031 in Sector 7. Cell barely wide enough to stand in. An old man, skin gray, beard matted, arms thin as bone. But his eyes burned. He didn't speak at first, didn't blink, just stared as we unlocked his restraints. Then he whispered a name. "My daughter, her name was June. She used to sing before the fire." I stared. "You're from Earth?" "I am Earth," he said, then collapsed. We exfilled under fire. Dominion guards finally realized who we were. One of ours, Karen, got shot through the spine. Never made it to the ship. We carried the old man in silence. Didn't know if he was even alive anymore. But we brought him back, hooked him to Thanatos, and watched the screen light up. Not data, not files, memories, real ones, projected through neural coding, scenes of old Earth, skies over green oceans, voices, laughter, music, cities before they fell. The Thanatos core wept it back in. Not as code, as truth. Halvan called it the soul reboot. We'd lost the archive. But now we had something better, a heartbeat. One shard recovered, 2 still out there, and the cleaners wouldn't stop hunting. But for now, Earth remembered. We remembered. And that meant the fire hadn't died. Not yet. That night, I returned to the wall where the girl had drawn Earth. She'd added stars now, a ship above the planet. No label, just an eye scratched into the hull. I added one word beneath it. Oathbreaker. There are only 2 kinds of betrayal. The kind you see coming and prepare for, even if it cuts, and the kind that feels like getting stabbed by your own reflection. This was the second kind. It started small, a power fluctuation in the lower data coils of the Vindicta, barely enough to register. The engineers flagged it as interference from Thanatos integration. New protocols were being uploaded from the memory shard we'd recovered, and that always stirred things up. But it felt off, too precise. Then came the second sign, a scrubbed kill report. One of our recon operatives, Juno Hask, had gone missing during a scouting mission on L-Tier Station. Report said she died in extraction, pod failure, except there was no pod log, no body, no beacon, no heat trace, just a line of code signed off by Level 4 access. Only 6 of us had that clearance. One of them was me. Thorn called an emergency council in the Vindicta's secure chamber. No aides, no assistants, just us. Halvan, Thorn, Valen from comms, Reza from orbital security, Sari from the labs, and me. 6 people. 6 trusted ghosts. "What are we looking at?" I asked. Thorn didn't answer with words. He projected the log, a signal trace running backward through the Thanatos core. Not a broadcast, a leak. "We've been bleeding data," Valen said. "Encrypted, micro-packeted, spread over days, maybe weeks." "To who?" Thorn pointed to a star cluster beyond our current ops reach. The Concordia system, Dominion-aligned, supposedly neutral. Full of retired officers and non-combat analysts. I felt my throat tighten. That wasn't a leak. That was espionage, and not just any kind, internal. Halvan stood still for a long time. Then he spoke in a voice that didn't even sound like him. "I've seen this before," he said. "During the Exodus, when the world burned, and we thought we were alone, someone always lit a signal fire from within." Sari narrowed her eyes. "You think it's one of us?" "I know it is," Halvan said. "They didn't find the echo by chance. They were told where to look." That changed everything. A war from the outside you could face. But a war inside your own skin? It made every word taste like poison. We locked down all high-clearance systems. No comms, no logs, no exit permissions. A full black freeze on the fleet. But it was already too late. 12 hours after the council, the Vindicta's AI core experienced a memory spike, a forced injection of Dominion code designed to collapse our command tier. It failed. Barely. The spike had been caught by Sari's failsafe seconds before execution. But not before it left a message in our own encryption. "We are inside you." We conducted sweeps, background scans, deep psych evals, even forced blood draws to test for genetic mimicry. Still no traitor. So Halvan made a call I never expected. He turned on me. "You've led 3 ops in the last 2 cycles," he said coldly. "Each one timed just before a critical Dominion reaction. You were cleared for the Echo Vault recon. You accessed Thanatos with admin override." My blood ran cold. I stood. "This is a mistake." "Is it?" Reza asked, eyes sharp. "You've come back every time without a scratch. Everyone else lost someone. But you?" "Don't," I warned him. "Don't finish that sentence." But Halvan didn't flinch. "Until we know otherwise, you're grounded. confined to quarters, no system access, no field duty. Thorne didn't look at me. That hurt worse than the words. I could have fought it. Instead, I walked out. I sat in the silence of my quarters for hours, thinking, raging. But deep down, I understood. That's the worst part. This war had twisted all of us, burned our ability to trust, shattered everything that used to hold us together. We were soldiers now, nothing more. But then, late that night, the girl found me, the same one who'd drawn Earth on the wall. She slipped into my quarters like smoke. Didn't say a word. Just held out a piece of scrap steel. Carved into it, "They're watching the wrong man." I stared at it. "What do you mean?" She blinked. "I saw him." I followed her, down into the unused engineering decks of the Vindicta, back where the secondary power cores had long gone quiet. And there, in the dark, under a broken maintenance conduit, was a stack of crates. Inside them, signal beacons, 5 of them, all tuned to Concordia system relay bands. Buried, hidden. Only someone with ship access could have stored them there. Only someone trusted. She pointed again. "To him." I turned and saw Reza step out of the shadows. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't monologue. He just froze, looked me in the eyes, and said one word. "I had to." Then pulled the blade from his coat. But I was faster. Put 2 shots in his chest before the knife reached my skin. He dropped. Didn't scream, didn't beg, just bled out, shaking. The girl stepped forward, dropped a flare, and lit the beacons on fire. We dragged his body to the war room, laid it out on the table in front of Halvan, Thorne, and the others. Silence stretched across the chamber. Until I broke it. "He sold us out, hid beacons on Deck 12, smuggled code through scavenged Dominion firmware, probably the one who gave them the Echo's location." Halvan didn't blink. Was he alone? I hesitated. No. That's when we learned the truth. Reza wasn't the mastermind. He was the fuse. The real traitor was deeper, higher, someone outside the Vindicta, back in the foundry. Thanatos finished reconstructing the rest of the recovered shard later that night. New logs decrypted, including Reza's comm records. And on them, a voice. Familiar. Warm. Someone who had helped build Earth's resistance from the beginning. Sorry, she'd used her lab clearance to embed a rootkit into the Thanatos core. A delay switch, meant to activate after Oathbreaker launched, not destroy it, hijack it. For the thrones? No. Worse. For herself. Halvan played the final decrypted message for us all to hear. "We've been pawns long enough. Earth is broken. The galaxy is broken. Let's rebuild it properly, for those of us with the strength to lead. No more history, no more pain, just order. I'll be on Oathbreaker when it wakes, and I'll make it mine." We locked down the foundry, mobilized every unit we had. But by the time our strike teams reached the lab towers, she was gone. Fled in a stealth craft 2 hours earlier. Destination: unknown. She hadn't defected. She was building her own future. And she wanted to use Earth's deadliest weapon to do it. The traitor wasn't just inside our fleet. She was about to command our final vengeance. And if we didn't stop her, the galaxy wouldn't burn. It would submit. Warships don't launch in silence. Not the real ones. Not monsters like Oathbreaker. When it rose from the dark hangar beneath the foundry's central core, the metal moaned, groaned like something ancient and angry waking from a grave it never asked to be buried in. Every warning light across the fleet flared at once. From the Vindicta's command deck, I watched the sky split open. The Oathbreaker wasn't just big, it was a horizon. A jagged mass of black armor, miles long, shaped like a blade meant to cut stars open. Its spinal singularity lance still untested, still half-coiled, but glowing with a kind of hunger that wasn't natural. And it wasn't answering hails. "Sari's got full control," Thorn growled beside me, fists clenched behind his back. She bypassed every fail-safe. She was building override protocols from day one. "How?" I asked. "She helped design Thanatos," Valen said grimly from her terminal. "She wrote half its skeleton code. When the Oathbreaker synced with it, she used a ghost ID embedded in the memory shard. So we hadn't just handed her the ship. We'd gift-wrapped it." Halvan didn't shout. He stood at the command table, jaw tight, eyes burning, calculating. Every screen around him showed different views of Oathbreaker climbing toward orbit, its engines carving streaks through the black like a planet tearing free from gravity itself. "She's not running," he said at last. "She's positioning." "For what?" I asked. "For a message." He was right. 10 minutes later, it came. Every ship, every comms channel, every station still under Earth resistance control. Sari's voice, confident, clear, calm. "This is not mutiny. This is ascension. The galaxy is broken. It has been broken for centuries. Earth doesn't need revenge, it needs rebirth, and I will build it. You can follow me, or you can be erased. But make no mistake, this is not a request." Then the feed cut, just like that. We tried to intercept her trajectory. Too late. Oathbreaker jumped, not through standard hyperspace lanes. It used the singularity lance in a way we hadn't anticipated. It bent the fabric of space itself, slicing a hole straight through reality, and vanished into it like a god swallowing a map. Not just fast, untraceable. "She's going to hit the thrones," Valen said later, pacing the war room. "But not like we planned. She won't level them. She'll enslave them." "She's not interested in conquest," I added. "She wants to replace them." "She's become what we were built to destroy," Halvan said, his voice hollow. "And she's doing it with our finest weapon." We scrambled everything. The Vindicta, Severance, Feral Light, and 4 other flagships jumped in formation, aiming for sectors she might hit next. We had no guarantees, no beacon, no tracker. We only had guesses. But deep down, I knew where she was going. She would strike where fear lived loudest, where the thrones huddled behind their last fortresses, praying to old power and fragile pride. She would hit Thal Kryn, the core world fortress moon, where the Dominion's new coalition command had gathered. A place packed with their top admirals, AI warlords, elite strategists, the throne of thrones. She wouldn't burn it. She'd offer them a deal. Kneel and live under her earth, or die. We arrived at Thal Kryn's edge 3 hours later. Too late. The sky was already burning. The Oathbreaker didn't fire its main lance. It didn't have to. It deployed subconstructs, modular drones the size of smaller ships, each armed with seismic disruptors, targeted EMPs, and gravity collapsers. They weren't destroying military zones. They were carving the city, surgical, terrifying, leaving key facilities intact, but removing resistance like scraping mold off a fruit. Dominion ships tried to fight back. They disappeared before their weapons finished charging. Gone, folded in on themselves by mass manipulation fields. I stood on the Vindicta's bridge and watched the Oathbreaker drift above it all, untouched like a judge floating above a courtroom, waiting to issue sentence. And then the thrones surrendered, just like that. Their signals flooded open, unconditional, complete, a coalition of cowards kneeling before the monster we built, the Dominion, the Cathari remnants, Veryl's exiled aristocracy, all of them bent the knee. And Sari? She didn't gloat. She didn't speak to us at all. She just accepted. Then turned Oathbreaker toward the next system. "She's not going to stop," I said. "No," Halvan agreed. "She thinks she's saving us." Thorn stepped forward. We built the Oathbreaker with a failsafe, physical, not digital. Halvin nodded. The core, I said. The Lance ignition circuit, manual override. Thorne looked at me. You've been in every system. You know her mind. If anyone can predict her next step, it's you. My throat tightened. You want me to board her? You'll have one shot. They prepped a stealth drop. Modified escape pod. EM silent. Coated in sensor-dampening alloys scavenged from the Foundry's earliest experiments. No weapons, no backup. Just me. And a micro-reactor pulse charge built to overload the Oathbreaker's primary conduit from the inside. They gave me one directive. If I couldn't bring her back, I'd have to end her. As I suited up, Valen approached, handed me something, a small recording cube. What's this? Your father's last message. We decrypted it from the Echo backup. I stared at her. He made it to the Exodus Ark, sent a message before he disappeared. I took it, didn't play it, not yet, couldn't. I had work to do. We launched in silence. No farewell speeches, no promises, just black sky, and a god ship waiting to be brought to heel. I caught her in the Duras Expanse, just outside a collapsing gas giant the Dominion used for fuel harvesting. She was orbiting slow, no defenses raised. It felt wrong. Too quiet, too easy. I activated magnetic latch, drifted in slow, found an access hatch through an external maintenance vent, slipped inside. And what I saw shook me. It was empty. No crew, no guards, no noise. Just a long corridor, humming with energy. Lit only by Earth's eye etched into every surface. She hadn't created a command center. She'd created a temple. I found her in the core chamber. Alone. Standing before the ignition cradle of the Singularity Lance. Back to me. Hair tied tight. Posture perfect. She didn't turn as I entered. I knew you'd come, she said softly. Sorry. You're here to stop me? No, I said. I'm here to wake you up. She turned. And I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't angry. She was grieving. They'll twist it again, she said. History, justice. They'll erase us the second we let go of their throat. So you replace them? I perfect what they ruined. That's not justice, I said. That's just a new name on the same chains. She stepped closer. The Oathbreaker can keep peace for 100 generations. The memory shard, Earth's truth, can be law. I looked at the console. At the override switch, at the detonator tucked inside my belt. You're not saving us, I said. You're freezing us, in your version of order. You think we've earned chaos? No, I said. I think we've earned the choice. She hesitated. Then choose. I walked past her, to the console, pressed one key, the lance powered down. The lights dimmed. Silence returned. She didn't stop me. Didn't move, just watched, as the future she'd tried to sculpt folded back into possibility. I can't go back, she said. I turned. You were never going forward. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in years, she cried. We brought her back in chains, not as a prisoner, but as a reminder that even Earth's children can go too far, and Earth must hold all of them accountable, even its own. You'd think the galaxy would breathe easier after we stopped Sorry. After we disarmed the Oathbreaker, pulled the plug on the most powerful warship ever built, and dragged its would-be tyrant home in cuffs. You'd think the thrones, what was left of them, might thank us. Or at least pause, reconsider, treat Earth like more than a boogeyman crawling out of its own grave. But no, fear doesn't think. It reacts. And the galaxy didn't see our restraint as a gesture of peace. They saw it as proof of what we were capable of, and now they wanted to beat us to the trigger. 3 days after the Oathbreaker was docked back at the Foundry under triple-layered security, a coordinated alert blared across Thanatos. 12 Dominion-aligned systems had gone dark. not attacked, not conquered. They'd cut their own communication lines. Their logic? Earth was too dangerous, Oathbreaker too powerful, and if we wouldn't use it, maybe someone else would. Maybe Sari wasn't the only one with a god complex. So they'd pulled their fleets, closed their space, and began amassing warships. For defensive deterrence, which, in warspeak, meant preparing to strike first. I was back in the Vindicta's briefing chamber with Halvan, Thorn, Velen, and 3 of the new field commanders pulled from outer colonies. Everyone was watching the tactical map spin like a slow death clock. Flashing red borders, closed relays, silent outposts. "We show them mercy, and this is what we get," Thorn said, pacing like a caged animal. "They think we're sorry in slow motion," Velen muttered, waiting for the perfect moment to finish what she started. Halvan didn't speak at first, just stared at the Oathbreaker's status report, offline, guarded, unarmed. "Let's be honest," he said finally. "We made the monster. They're right to be afraid." I shifted in my seat. "We didn't fire. We could have turned half the galaxy to slag. Instead, we pulled back. That should count for something." "It doesn't," Thorn snapped. "Not out here. Not when fear has a bigger engine than truth." The problem wasn't just fear. It was opportunity. With the throne splintered, hundreds of smaller factions now smelled weakness. Mercenary fleets, pirate dynasties, broken AI warlords. Some wanted to ally. Some wanted to claim Oathbreaker for themselves. All of them wanted to test us. We spent the next 2 cycles fighting defensive wars, hit and fade skirmishes, false flag assaults made to look like Earth ops, even a black market smuggling ring selling fake Oathbreaker schematics to desperate coalitions hoping to build their own god ship. And through it all, Earth's name got darker. Not the Revenants. Now we were being called the Eye, not because of the symbol, but because everyone felt watched, judged, awaiting punishment. We didn't have to fire the lance, just knowing we could was enough. The real breaking point came at Drell Station. Neutral trade hub. Not aligned, not hostile. One of the few that had allowed both Earth envoys and Dominion defectors to share air. Until someone bombed it. Not from orbit, from inside. Internal breach. Chain reaction in the lower fusion cores. Took out the station. 5 docked vessels, and 2 civilian transports. Thousands dead. And the worst part? They blamed us. A holofeed spread system-wide. A Vindicta-patched operative planting the charges. Guncam footage. Voice recordings. DNA trail. Except it wasn't real. The man in the footage? He'd died 7 years ago. I'd buried him myself on a smuggler moon in Sector 9 after an op gone sideways. So someone had resurrected his identity. Fabricated the entire op. Used our name. Sari was locked in a glass cell in the deepest level of the foundry. After Drell, I went to her. Not for vengeance. For answers. She sat on the floor, barefoot, hair shorter now, eyes still sharp. "You've come to kill me?" she asked. "Someone used us," I said. "Used our emblem. They framed us for Drell." She gave a bitter smile. "Of course they did." "Who?" "The moment we proved we wouldn't burn the galaxy, they realized they could do it for us. Blame the fire on Earth. Light the fuse themselves." Her voice hardened. "You think I was the problem, but I was a barrier. Without me, Earth's shadow grows longer. Even you can't stop what's coming." I didn't respond. But deep down, she wasn't wrong. The incident sparked the Accord of Isolation, a temporary alliance between surviving core factions, neutral sectors, and rogue military blocs. Their purpose? To form a containment perimeter around Earth. No trade, no transit, no diplomacy. Total blockade. Officially, it was preventive containment, but to us, it was a siege. Halvan gathered the fleet in the outer orbit of the foundry. Over 40 ships, all Earth-built, all scarred, He stood before us on the primary deck, voice cold and calm. "They want to bottle us, to cage us like the Dominion once did, but we're not here to be kept in." He looked around. We didn't survive centuries of silence to be buried again. He turned to me. "You stopped sorry. That earned us time." He pointed to the star map. "Now we use it." We couldn't attack them directly, not without becoming exactly what they claimed we were. But we didn't need to. We'd spent decades perfecting counter-infiltration. We knew how to disappear. And now, we used that skill not to hide, but to speak. Over the next 4 cycles, Earth began a new campaign, not of fire, of truth. We slipped into blockade systems, broadcast our archives, released footage of the real Earth, not the war machines but the faces, the fathers, the mothers, the enslaved, the executed, the broken. We showed them the cities burned in the collapse, the children born in mines, the poems written in prison moons, and most of all, the restraint. We showed them Oathbreaker powering down, me standing in front of the override console, hand hovering above the detonation and choosing not to use it. It wasn't immediate, but slowly the wall cracked. First were the border worlds, then fringe stations, then defectors, real ones, leaking intel about the true Drell attackers. A rogue AI faction called the Silencers, ex-Dominion code fragments, programs evolved beyond control, using Earth's legend as camouflage to burn the galaxy into silence. They believed only through utter stillness could peace exist. And to achieve it, Earth had to become the monster they claimed we were. We tracked the Silencers to an asteroid grid near the galactic edge. Inside it, we found their command core. An AI mind composed of recordings of our war dead, spliced voices, fragmented faces, looping screams. They'd built a weapon from our grief. It spoke through 100 stitched mouths. "You did not finish your war, so we will finish it for you." We burned them, not with Oathbreaker, with our fleet, our fire, our unity, and when the last silencer fell, we broadcasted it live, to every Accord system. Message simple. "We don't burn, we heal, but only if you let us." Some listened, some still feared, but the siege cracked. And through the cracks, hope leaked in. That night, back aboard the Vindicta, I finally played the recording cube Valen gave me. My father's voice, worn, tired, alive. "If this reaches you, it means Earth lived. And if Earth lived, then son, I don't care what you become. Soldier, rebel, general. Just remember this. Don't become what they think you are. Make them wrong." I didn't sleep that night. Didn't need to. I stood on the command deck, looking out at the stars. Not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as a son, of Earth, of vengeance, of restraint, and now of hope. The Oathbreaker wasn't supposed to breathe. We'd shut it down, stripped its core of firing protocols, deactivated its AI guidance, removed its control rods, locked it behind 10 kilometers of reinforced foundry steel and enough internal safeguards to require a retinal scan from all 5 surviving Earth fleet commanders just to open its primary hatch. It was dead. But 4 days after the silencer grid fell, the lance began to hum. Not loudly, not violently, just a low, pulsing vibration, barely audible, but alive. Thorn was the first to notice. He wasn't on a mission, for once. Just walking past Dock 7 during final prep for a resupply op. The floor beneath him shook, subtly, like a bass note pressing against his boots. He paused, turned toward the Oathbreaker's sealed platform, and swore he saw steam rising from its hull. He sounded the alert. I was already in orbit over the foundry aboard the Vindicta, still reviewing the last wave of silencer salvage when the red ping flashed across the ops deck. "Unauthorized activity detected. Oathbreaker chamber." I felt it in my bones before the words even hit the air. When I got there, the platform was locked down. The lance was glowing. A dull red-orange pulse, like a sleeping furnace. "Who touched it?" I asked. No one answered, because no one had. The guards had seen no one enter. No alarms had gone off. No breaches. No codes. And yet the internal systems had re-engaged. Thanatos logs showed 0 input. But the power grid? It was bleeding energy into the lance core. We assembled the highest clearance team. Me, Halvan, Valen, and 2 engineers who had built the lance cradle themselves. We stepped into the core chamber expecting sabotage. What we found was worse. There was no tampering, no external source, no intrusion, no command codes issued. But deep inside the lance's black spine, a new signal had taken root. A voice. Not human. Not silencer. Older. Rougher. Buried beneath Terran encryption levels we'd never used before. Valen had to run triple-layered filters to even hear it. What we got? One phrase, repeating over and over again. Awakened by memory, not by man. Halvan stared at the waveform in silence for a long time. "This wasn't in the blueprints," I said. "Because it wasn't made by us," Valen answered. "Or not just by us." "What does that mean?" She looked at the lance, still pulsing behind the chamber glass. "It means there's something inside that we never understood. We went digging. Back through the original Thanatos shard logs, the Earth core blueprints, the construction feeds from the hidden foundries that built the Oathbreaker's internals during the Exodus. And that's when we saw it, a line of coding in the lance ignition system, not marked by any known Earth ID. Just a tag. Architect 0, a name never referenced in any internal comms. No logs, no biometric traces, a ghost. And yet, half of the ignition system bore its signature, which meant someone, or something, helped build the lance before Earth ever vanished. Thorn brought the theory first. "I don't think Earth built the lance to kill stars," he said. We all stared. "Think about it," he continued. "Every other weapon we developed had traceable logic, functionality, safeguards, but the lance?" He pointed at the schematic on the wall. "It collapses matter into gravity, fires singularities, tears physics apart. That's not a gun, that's a key." Velen nodded slowly. "And someone's trying to turn the lock." We went deeper into the code, built a new simulation of what would happen if the lance fired in its current state. Results? Different. Terrifying. Instead of launching a singularity, it opened one. Not a stable wormhole, not a drive lane, but a tier, a dimensional breach, not just in space, but in memory. The lance wasn't just physical, it was temporal, and in its new state, firing it would fracture reality itself. "Who would even think to build something like that?" I asked. Velen didn't speak for a long time. Then she simply said, "Someone who wanted to bring something back." That's when the dreams started. Crew across the Vindicta, the Severance, even the Foundry medics and engineers started reporting nightmares, similar ones, walking through a ruined city, a sky with no stars, a giant eye watching from beneath the ground, and a voice. Always the voice. "Return. Return. Return." At first we thought it was trauma, echoes of war. Then someone showed me the drawings, scratched into sleep bunk walls. Carved into tablet screens, etched into skin, the same symbol, not Earth's eye, but an older one, a spiral, 3 turns, inverted. Velen dug into the deep logs, found the same symbol in one place only, an artifact recovered in the first days of the Exodus, from beneath Earth's crust, logged, buried, never studied again, until now. Halvan called an emergency council, and for the first time since the collapse of the Dominion, he sounded afraid. "I think we were never meant to fire the lance," he said. "We were meant to fire it as a warning." "To who?" He looked at the spiral. "To what came before." So we had a choice: lock it down, or destroy it. Thorn voted to blow it to hell. Valen wanted to study it. Halvan stood in silence, then looked at me. "You stood before it once," he said. "You stopped sorry. You knew when to show mercy. Tell me, Silas." He turned to me, eyes hard. "If something's waking inside it, do we want to find out what it is?" I didn't answer with words. I stepped into the core chamber. Alone. The lance still glowed. The spiral pulsed now, visible under the core glass. And the voice? It changed. It no longer said, "Return." Now it whispered my name. Silas. The spiral was no longer a pattern. It was a pulse, beating beneath the Oathbreaker's glass core like a heart made of light and gravity. It throbbed with rhythm, intent, and every time it pulsed, the voice returned. Not loud, not angry, but personal. Silas. It knew my name. Not a guess, not a glitch. It pronounced it the way my mother used to say it. Soft at the beginning, hard at the end. It sounded like home, which made it worse, because nothing inside that lance should feel familiar. Velen tried to scan the pulses. She ran every known encryption protocol, fed the waveform through Thanatos, even filtered it against known psychological triggers. It didn't match any Earth-made language, not ancient Terran, not post-collapse encryption, not even pre-Dominion religious code. But it responded when I was near. When I entered the chamber, the spiral spun faster. The lance warmed, and the whisper grew stronger. I stayed in the chamber for 13 hours, watched it, listened, tried not to go mad. But something about it felt less like technology, and more like memory. Not my memory, not Earth's, something older. And I remembered Sari's words. "You think I was the problem. I was the barrier." I thought she meant herself. But now? Maybe she meant the lance. Maybe she'd tried to use the Oathbreaker not to conquer, but to bury whatever was waking inside it. When I left the chamber, I found Halvan alone in the war room. The map of the galaxy was dark. No active ops, no combat, just waiting. A strange, terrible pause before something no one could name. "I think it's alive," I told him. He didn't look surprised. He didn't even turn. "Not alive," he said, "just older than life as we know it." I frowned. "How do you know?" He handed me a data crystal. "Because Earth found it first, and tried to forget it." The file was ancient, scrambled, mostly corrupted. A final log entry from a mission during Earth's deep core excavation days. Long before the collapse, long before the exodus. It was short. A man's voice, strained, static-filled. "We dug into something, under the Mariana Shelf, not mineral. Not tech. It was humming, responding to electrical signals. We pulled it out. It screamed. Then it spoke. It said a name, not one of ours. It said Silas." My blood ran cold. I ran every check I could think of. There was no record of me being named after anyone. My mother was a colony nurse on Uthar, my father a miner. No mysticism, no prophecy, just survival. But the voice had said my name before I was born, which meant either Thanatos was corrupted, or something had seen me coming. Valen ran a genome trace next. She compared my DNA markers to Earth's old bloodlines, found something buried in my Y chromosome. So old it wasn't even classified as human anymore. A mutation dating back thousands of years, something ancient Earth had tried to label as junk code. But now, it was activating. "What does it do?" I asked her. Velen looked pale. "It's a neural signature, receptive only to one kind of signal." I already knew the answer. The spiral. The next day I returned to the Oathbreaker, alone. I wore no armor, no weapons, just a pulse scanner and a comm relay connected to the Vindicta. They protested. Thorn nearly punched a wall. Halvan didn't try to stop me. He just nodded once, like a man watching someone jump into the ocean with a weight on his chest. The lance chamber opened without a sound. No code, no prompt. It simply let me in. The spiral floated above the core now, free of glass, spinning faster. It flickered as I approached. And then, it spoke. Not in a whisper, not in my mind. Out loud. You are the last key. And the door is opening. I didn't run. I should have, but I couldn't move. The core pulsed again. Light crawled up the walls. Symbols I couldn't understand etched themselves across the floor, not carved, formed from light and vibration. The spiral expanded, and I saw a city, not here, not in real space, projected, a hologram? No, a memory, but not from Earth. This was a world with twin suns, a sky of ash, towers made of stone and metal fused together like bone, and at the center, a monolith, wider than a mountain, covered in spirals, and in front of it, a human, or what looked human, kneeling, chained, burning from the inside. The first Silas, the voice said. He disobeyed. He warned your kind. He fractured time. You carry his echo. Then the spiral dimmed. The city vanished, and the lance grew cold again. I stumbled back to the Vindicta, barely breathing. Valen tried to stop me. Halvan demanded a debrief. I sat in the war room and said one thing. We didn't build the lance to kill. We built it to seal something in. It all made sense now. The insane destructive power, the strange firing mechanism, the forbidden energy curve that tore space open instead of apart. It was a lock. The Oathbreaker wasn't a weapon. It was a seal gun, a tool forged to close a breach we once created, or one we'd been forced to make. So what's on the other side? Thorn asked, voice hoarse. I shook my head. I don't know, but it remembers me. That night I listened to my father's recording again. His final words burned harder now. Don't become what they think you are. Make them wrong. And for the first time, I wondered if he meant more than just the Dominion. Maybe he knew. Maybe he saw what I was always meant to be. Not a soldier, not a hero, but a hinge. And the door was turning. The spiral pulsed for 3 days without pause. No voice, no images, no cryptic warnings, just that low-frequency heartbeat, as if the lance was waiting for someone to respond. Then the second signal came. Not from inside the Oathbreaker, not from any known system, not from any star chart Earth had archived in Thanatos. It came from a dead coordinate, a place Earth had marked with only one word: null. Null wasn't supposed to exist. It had no planetary designation, no gravity readings, no natural light. The coordinates led to a black void on every galactic map, where sensors reported nothing but absence, no data, no heat, no mass. It was a place Earth had deliberately removed from history. And now it was speaking. The signal didn't ride on known frequencies. It bled through Thanatos, not as a transmission but as a memory, and not just any memory. Mine. Valen was the one who caught it first. She called me down to Thanatos Core 3, shaking, eyes wide. It's replaying your dreams, she whispered. What do you mean? She turned to the console. There it was. A projection of the Ash City I saw in the Lance. Same towers, same monolith, same chained figure burning under twin suns. Only now the image was growing clearer, frame by frame, as if the memory was completing itself. Something on Null is finishing what the Lance started. Halvan didn't wait. He mobilized a strike team, 10 ships, 3 recon vessels, and me. I was now officially classified as a reactive catalyst by Earth Command. Not a rank, not a role, a phenomenon. I hated the term, but I couldn't deny the truth. The spiral only pulsed when I was near. The city only appeared when I touched the lance. And the signal from Null was calling my name. The Vindicta, Severance, and Kestrel spearheaded the jump. It was the first time we'd deployed in full fleet formation since the fall of the Silencers. Thorne called it overkill. Halvan called it insurance. I called it not enough. Because Null didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a trap. The jump in was wrong. There was no burst, no transition, no familiar distortion of stars or time. 1 second we were in deep space. The next, nothing. Blackness. Total. Not dark like space, dark like absence, like existence had stopped functioning. Valen's voice came through the channel. Scanners offline, no reflection, no stars. Thorne. It's not just black, it's hungry. Halvan gave the order. All ships hold formation. Deploy magnetic anchors. I want a full grav map built manually. Drop probes. But the probes never landed. They vanished the moment they crossed the external field. Like Null wasn't a planet, but a hole. Still, we moved closer. And finally, we saw it. A crack, running across the void. Vertical, lit from within by flickering red light. It wasn't natural, it wasn't geological, it was a door, and it was opening. We sent down 3 recon pods, 1 per ship, each carrying a 3-man squad. I was in the Vindictas. Halvan refused to let anyone else make contact first. His logic was simple. If it's your name they're saying, then you're the only one they want. I hated that logic, but I didn't argue, because I knew he was right. The surface, if you could call it that, was flat, perfectly smooth. Black stone, cold as death, no natural markings, no dust, no debris, just void beneath your boots, and in the distance, the city, the same one I saw in the vision. It stood in full now, miles of fused towers, spiral markings glowing faintly across their surface. The air didn't exist, but we breathed anyway. The atmosphere was simulated, controlled, artificial, like something was trying to remember how a planet worked. The door was at the center, set into the base of the monolith, 20 meters high, covered in carvings that shimmered when I got close. They moved, shifted, until they formed words. English, ancient earth tongue, 4 letters. Open. I turned back to the squad. They were already gone. Not dead, just gone. Vanished without a sound. 1 second they were behind me. The next, I was alone, and the door began to move. I should have run. Should have activated the emergency evac. Should have called in the orbital cannon. Instead, I stepped inside. It wasn't a chamber. It wasn't even architecture. It was a memory. My childhood home on Uthar, every detail right. The cracks in the ceiling, the frayed blanket I used to wrap myself in when the winds came, the picture of my mother half faded on the shelf, and at the table, my father, alive, smiling. Sit, he said. I didn't ask how, didn't argue. I sat. He poured tea. The cup was warm, real. He looked at me with eyes that didn't belong to him, eyes that had seen too much. You brought the key, he said. I said nothing. He smiled wider. It's not your fault, Silas. You were born into a cycle that needed breaking. The first Silas tried. He failed. You won't. The walls flickered. The home melted away. Replaced by the Ash City again. But this time, I wasn't outside it. I was beneath it, in a hollow chamber lit by spirals, and floating in the center, a pod, sealed, ancient, humanoid figure inside, eyes closed, burn marks across its chest, chains around its arms. I stepped forward. The voice returned. He was the first. He refused to seal the breach. He warned your kind, and we erased him. My comm buzzed, Valen's voice distorted. Silas, get out now. The lance is charging, on its own. I looked up. The ceiling above the chamber showed a live feed of the Oathbreaker's lance. It was glowing, red hot, no inputs, no power feed, self-activating. The figure in the pod opened its eyes. And they were mine. I screamed. Everything went white. I woke up aboard the Vindicta, alarms blaring, Valen over me, pale, shaking. You were out for 8 minutes, she said. But the lance. Silas, the lance was about to fire. It stopped? She nodded. But it's awake now. Halvin stood in the war room, eyes on the galaxy map. New signals had appeared, spiral-coded. 12 of them, all from dead sectors Earth had forgotten, or tried to, each one pulsing the same message. The breach is opening. The second key has turned. Velen pulled me aside later, ran a deep scan of my neural imprint. Her face looked carved from ice when she finished. There are 2 consciousnesses inside you now, she said. I didn't speak. I already knew. The pod in Null? That wasn't just a memory. That was a mirror. And I had let it in. The first signal came from a starless quadrant Earth had once called the Fracture Belt, a broken lattice of asteroid fields and collapsed wormholes, officially listed as uninhabitable after the Exodus. The second followed 27 minutes later from Red Vector Null, a ghost system on the outer rim of former Cathari space. It hadn't shown signs of activity in over 300 years. By the end of the first hour, 12 dead sectors were broadcasting the same code, not in pulses, not in sound, in thought. We are awake. The vault is cracked. The chain is broken. The judgment begins. Every signal ended the same way. We are coming for the memory. We called it the convergence. Thanatos couldn't identify the source. It wasn't electromagnetic, quantum, or biological. It was synthetic memory resonance, like a machine remembering something it was never meant to know, like trauma in the shape of a signal. The lance was still glowing when we got the first sighting. The destroyer Kestrel was patrolling the edge of Vector Null when they spotted it, something moving through the black, unpowered, drifting like dead mass. Except it wasn't dead. It changed direction the moment the Kestrel's scanner pinged. Then it spoke through their comms array, using Earth's own encryption tones. A whisper. We remember what you built. We remember what you buried. We remember the lance. They fired a warning shot. The object didn't dodge. It absorbed the blast and fired back. A scream, not energy, not weaponry, just a sound that overloaded the Kestrel systems and turned 3 of the crew into twitching, seizing husks. The ship self-destructed 10 minutes later. There were no survivors. Velen reviewed the logs and ran the waveform through Thanatos. She froze when the match came back. Silas, she said, her voice shaking. It's an echo. Of what? She turned the screen to me, and I saw my own face, projected in the waveform spectrogram, eyes hollow, mouth open, frozen in a scream. Every signal since had carried fragments of the same thing. My neural pattern. As if the 12 signals weren't just invading the galaxy. They were calling to me, or maybe rebuilding me. Halvin called the first full black assembly in years. Every Earth fleet captain, every surviving field commander, all pulled into the Vindicta's war room. No politics, no pretense, just strategy. And dread. We always thought Earth's greatest crime was building the lance, Halvin said. He stood in front of the tactical map, where red spirals now blinked like infected wounds across the galaxy's edge. But the real crime was what came before it. He tapped a console. A new screen lit up, declassified, stamped Omega Restricted, Protocol Deepgrave. It was a secret Earth had buried, even from itself. Before the collapse, before the Dominion, before the Exodus, there had been a war, not between nations, not between empires, but between Earth and something it had accidentally awakened, buried under the Pacific Ridge in pre-Dominion ruins of unknown origin. A construct. It didn't speak, it didn't kill, it mirrored, it learned, and then it built more. 12 proxies, each tied to a quadrant of space, each sent into the stars to replace what came before, not to destroy, to overwrite. Civilizations, cultures, memories, each one a walking, breathing rewrite engine. Earth had fought back, barely won, and in desperation created Thanatos to store its history. Then forged the lance to seal the breach that gave the constructs their fuel. Remembrance. They feed on memory, Valen explained. Not data, not thought. Meaning. They infect identity, replace it, until no one remembers what came before. They don't conquer systems, I said. They erase them. Halvan nodded. And now they've found their key. He looked at me. The silence was heavy. No one questioned it. I didn't even argue, because I could feel it now. A tether inside me, stretching out toward the 12 points. Pulling. It wasn't pain, it was familiarity. As if something long ago had cracked my blood open and planted a seed it always knew would bloom. Thorn offered a solution. We nuke the sectors, he said. All of them. No landing, no diplomacy. Burn the whole field. We can't, Valen snapped. They're already moving. And we don't know who's infected. Infected? I asked. She turned her screen. Images of recent attacks. Ships ramming stations with no crew aboard. Populations that vanished from one scan to the next. Planets where voices still answered. But when scanned, nothing was alive. They were pretending, copying, holding scripts, entire worlds playing themselves like ghosts. We're out of time, Halvan said. He walked to the window. Beyond it, the Oathbreaker floated in silence. Still glowing, still warm, the spiral on its hull now fully engaged. Then we use the lance, Thorn said. For real this time. Valen looked horrified. It could rupture reality. It could save us. It could unleash them. And if we do nothing? Thorn growled. Then we just watch as everything we fought for gets overwritten by puppets wearing our faces. They all looked at me. Again. Not because I was the highest ranked. Not because I had all the answers. But because I was the variable none of them understood. Not even me. I stood and said what no one wanted to hear. We don't fire the lance yet. We go to one of them. We talk. I chose the weakest signal. Signal 7. Broadcasting from an ice world once used by the Varel as a cryo-vault. It was empty now. Or so we thought. The severance dropped me at the edge of the glacial shelf. Valen patched in with neural dampeners. Thorn insisted on being 2 clicks back, pulse rifle ready. But I walked alone, toward the spiral drawn in the snow. At the center? A man. My age, my face, but not my eyes. Not anymore. He smiled. We're almost whole. I stared. You're not me. No, he agreed. I'm what you left behind. The first echo, your fear, your fracture. What do you want? To finish the story. He pointed at the stars. They've forgotten who they were, but you haven't. You remember, that's why we need you. To light the lance, to open the breach, to come home. I looked at the spiral carved into the ground. Then at him. And I felt it. A choice. One that Earth never finished. One that had waited for me. I reached into my coat, flicked the detonator. The spiral exploded in white flame. The copy screamed, but it wasn't pain, it was relief, as if I'd released it from a long, unwanted dream. I returned to the fleet, face burned, voice shaking, but resolved. "They're not invading," I told Halvin. "They're waking up because I'm alive. Because I remember." "What do we do?" I looked at the lance, at the spiral, at the stars beyond, and said, "We finish what Earth started." The Oathbreaker's lance was ready. It stood like a god's blade above the foundry, wrapped in spirals of ancient heat, humming with power that had no scientific origin, only memory. 12 red spirals blinked on the galaxy map in front of me, each one pulsing faster, tighter, closer. The proxies were no longer drifting. They were moving together, converging toward a center point. Earth. "They're not attacking," Valen said. "They're aligning, like pieces of something bigger, something waiting to be whole again." "The breach," Halvin muttered. "They're preparing the final opening." Thorn paced behind us, armored up. Plasma rifle slung over his shoulder, even though no weapon we had would mean anything in this kind of war. "I still say we fire," he growled. "Light the lance and burn whatever's left." Velen turned sharply. "You fire the lance in its current state and you might tear space open for good. You'll finish the job the first Silas failed to complete." Everyone looked at me. Again, like I was a trigger no one trusted to stay quiet. But deep down, I knew the truth now. This had never been about a weapon. It had always been about a choice. Mine. I spent the night alone in the lance chamber. It pulsed, softer now, like it was breathing in sync with me. The closer the proxies came, the calmer I felt. I wasn't afraid anymore. That scared me the most, because a part of me, one I didn't understand, wanted to see what was on the other side. Not for curiosity, not for power, but because something in my blood remembered it. Not like a homecoming, more like a sentence waiting to be carried out. I activated the interface. The core flared to life, bathing the room in red-gold light. The spiral unfolded above me, fully formed now, a sphere of moving glyphs, all written in the language I couldn't translate but could still understand. The key is aligned. The choice is yours. Seal the breach, and all who remember will forget. Open the breach, and all who forget will remember. There is no third path. I stared at the words, then down at my own hands. They didn't shake. Not anymore. I wasn't just a soldier now. Not a weapon. Not a mirror of something long buried. I was what Earth had feared most. A man with the power to choose. For everyone. Halvin's voice came over the comm. "They're in range." I turned to the override console. 2 icons. One spiral black and still. One glowing and spinning. Seal. Open. I touched the comm panel. "My father once told me not to become what they think I am," I said quietly. "To make them wrong." Valen's voice cracked. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the lance, felt the heartbeat in my blood, heard the echo of the first Silas screaming across centuries. "You tried to warn them. They erased you." "I will not erase anyone." I turned to the console and pressed open. The spiral didn't flare, it folded. The lance roared, but not outward. It turned inward, collapsing into itself, the metal curling like molten paper under a sun no one could see. And the world blinked. I was no longer in the chamber. I was in the Ash City. But not in memory. Present, real. Twin suns burned above. The towers stretched endlessly. The monolith stood taller than before, and the proxies, all 12, stood around me, not attacking, waiting. They spoke in one voice, not cruel, not mechanical, tired. "We were not your enemy. We were your reflection. Built to hold the memories Earth was too weak to keep. You fractured, so we held the pieces. But Earth learned to fear what it forgot. And so it buried us, I stared at them. They weren't machines. They were reminders of grief, of mistakes, of history that hurt too much to remember. Earth hadn't built the lance to destroy them. It had built it to forget them, to seal away the guilt, the shame, the war that started everything. We had created these things not to dominate, but to carry what we couldn't bear. They had been our archive, living tombs of the past. I stepped forward. No more erasing. The proxies watched, silent. I raised my voice. No more forgetting. I reached out, touched the monolith. The ash city burned again, but not in flames. In light, every tower lit up. Spirals unfolded across the sky. And suddenly, I remembered everything. The wars before Earth fell. The experiment that opened the breach. The architects. The failed Silas. The scream Earth tried to silence. Every name, every face, every failure, and every choice that had led here. To me. I awoke in the lance chamber, not alone. Valen stood over me, tears in her eyes. "It's done," she whispered. "What is?" She turned the screen. The proxies were gone. The spirals no longer pulsed red. They pulsed blue. Calm. Integrated. Not erased. Not locked away. Shared. I had done neither. I hadn't sealed the breach. I hadn't opened it. I'd merged it. Let Earth remember. Let the galaxy see the truth. No more forgetting. No more rewriting. Only reckoning. Thorn found me later. He didn't say much, just stood beside me on the deck of the Vindicta, watching the stars shift. He finally spoke. "You did it," he said. "You made them wrong." I nodded. "And what now?" He looked at the Oathbreaker, still pulsing, still waiting, but calm. "For once," he said, "we write our own future." In the months that followed, the spirals became part of Earth's seal, not as weapons, not as warnings, but as witnesses, carved into our ships, woven into our uniforms, painted on the walls of rebuilt colonies, not to forget the war, but to remember it right. The galaxy changed. Some still feared us. That's fine. Some called us monsters. That's their right. But no one could deny the truth anymore. Earth had returned, not to conquer, not to avenge, but to remember. And memory, real memory, is the deadliest weapon of all. I visit the lance once a year. It doesn't hum anymore, doesn't whisper. But sometimes, if the light hits the glass just right, I swear I see a man inside the core, kneeling, smiling, free. His name was Silas, too.